Okay, let's get started. So, welcome everybody to this special presentation. I'm going to offer a little bit of context before we get started. So HMCT offers a residency program every year that invites artists, designers, researchers, typographers, or educators for a 4-week residency here in our space in Pasadena. This program is designed to support a proposed project that explores the significance of language and typography within the professional practice or personal research of each resident.
This year's resident was Yara Khoury Nammour, who was here with us in the spring, researching the frequency and variation of letters in the Arabic script and uncovering structural patterns across a wide body of text. Yara is a designer, educator, and researcher from Lebanon. She is an assistant professor of graphic design at the American University of Beirut, and she also leads the Arabic Type Research Unit, which focuses on practice-based research. She also co-organizes the biennial MASH conference at AUB, aiming to advance Arabic typography. And Yara will let you tell us all about your research and where it's leading you.
Thank you so much for doing this presentation. Thank you to everybody for being here. We're going to be in the background. Please put your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll have a look at them at the end. Yara, take it away.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Lavinia and Jimena, for the very nice introduction. I would just like to say a few words before I start. Before my 1-month residency in February, I wasn't sure I would be able to go to the US all the way to LA, Pasadena. The situation in Lebanon was filled with uncertainty, especially with the Israelis' relentless assault in October and November, and then the sporadic airstrikes continuing across the country until now, even after the ceasefire. So stepping away from Beirut, while such brutality was unfolding in front of me, gave me a rare chance to reclaim something lost in times of violence: time, clarity, and a peace of mind. So I have the HMCT to thank them for their support in this part of a much wider research project. I would like to thank you, Jimena, Lavinia, and Susan, and Colette for all the help I got and the support I got while I was there. This project started back in 2021 when I began working with my research assistant, Haris Basil, at the time, to explore the structural makeup of Arabic typography. We were working on bilingual format structures of books, and we thought, what about the typography? So this is where the idea started in 2021. Now, while designers understand the forms, shapes, and structures that make up Latin type and its visual impact in long text settings, the same cannot be said about Arabic type. Although Arabic type design and its typography have grown significantly over the past 2 decades or more even, however, much of it still relies on aesthetic intuition and visual equity rather than structured analysis of how the script looks and performs in continuous text. The design process is often guided by the accumulated experience and informed intuition of the designer rather than by quantitative form-based studies or some reference books that we can look into. In Arabic, where letters connect and change shape depending on their position in the word, the visual repetition of certain forms creates a texture, I believe, that shapes the way we read and interact with the text. The question is, what are these forms and how often do they appear? So the aim of the study is to better understand the visual texture of Arabic script by conducting a comprehensive frequency count of all its contextual forms, which we will call here the allographs, using large text corpora. By identifying the most and least recurring forms, examining the shapes they take, and analyzing features such as how many of these forms carry diacritic dots, how many reach the highest or lowest vertical positions, how many contain closed loops, how many include teeth or nabiras, we hope to include or uncover the structural patterns and rhythms that shape the visual presence of Arabic on a page, whether it's a screen or a print. By visual texture, I mean the overall visual imprint or surface quality created by the repetition and distribution of letter forms across a block of text. The results of the study can hopefully aid type designers, typographers working in both print and digital realms, legibility researchers also, and educators of the Arabic language in making more informed decisions. But first, let's take a quick look at the building blocks of Arabic calligraphy for a better understanding of its type. According to Ibn Muqla, a 10th century Abbasid calligrapher, Arabic calligraphy has a scientific foundation that is built on three main principles. The first is the rhombic dot, that is considered a unit of measurement defined by the width of the nib. The dot sets the proportional structures shaping vertical forms like the letter Alif, and horizontal strokes of the bay, the body of the hay, and the diagonals of the dal. So how many dots, the count of the dots is very important to set the proportions. Nizam al-Da'ira, or the circle principle, is often drawn using the height of the letter Alif as its diameter. So it's a circle with a geometric basis for determining the proportions of the letters and its relationship and their relationship to each other. The third principle is that of similarity, Nizam al-Tashabuh, which is most pertinent to the study, and keep this in mind. It ensures that Arabic letters are constructed from recurring shared strokes, creating visual harmony and consistency across the script. All three rules, and maybe there's a bit more, established foundational principles for a proportion script. What we call it al-khat al-mansoob. The alphabet itself features 19 basic shapes, or rasams, we call, and that are capable of carrying diacritic dots or i'jam below or above them. Here, the 6 words share the same base shape rasam and are distinguished only by the number and placement of dots above or below the base, transforming a single base form into multiple distinct letters and thus words. Short vowels here are indicated by vocalization marks in red. This is a very quick view on the script. A defining feature of the Arabic writing system is allography, where 15 of the 29 letters differ significantly depending on their location within the word, from initial, medial, final, and isolated. As an example here, you can see the ayn is changing considerably depending on its position. Also, the ha is changing very much. All 4 forms of ayn or he serve the same linguistic function, representing the same phoneme, yet they contribute differently to the overall appearance of the text. So you cannot count H's alone and say, this is how many H there are. The ha changes so much in shape that you need to count all its variable shapes. The Arabic alphabet consists of 29 letters, plus the required lam alif ligature, totaling 30 core graphemes. 8 letters marked in yellow here, 6 letters marked in yellow here, plus the lam alif connect only to the letter before them. Additional forms created by adding or subtracting dots and diacritic signs such as hamzas and maddas to base graphemes are also counted, bringing the total to 40 graphemic units, distinct ones. Across the script, if you count all of the graphemic units plus their variations, there are 125 such forms. Now, how do we count the frequency of the 125 allographs? And what tool do we use to count them? There is an absence of readily available tools that will count Arabic allographs. The research found some tools such as ANAB, A-N-A-B by Mohsen Madi, but it operates only at the graphemic level, not taking into account the rest of the varying shapes or the allographs. So we developed our own tool, custom tool, with the help of software engineer Yara Khoury, that is capable of recognizing and counting all the 125 distinct Arabic allographs across digitized text. The tool processes each line of Arabic text by extracting the glyphs from the rendered font and maps them to a predefined set of visual forms. The program is written in C# and runs on the .NET platform. It reads basically input files that you put, you can see here the input in yellow on the left. It reads the input files from a designated directory that I input, processes Unicode characters in the Arabic range, and outputs a CSV file, a comma-separated values file, that lists the frequency of each identified allograph. The tool basically allows for precise, scalable analysis of large text corpora. As I can see here, it gives me a list in the output. And then I can take that output into an Excel sheet because it's a CSV file. To run this tool and to see how it works, we needed a large corpus of text that would verify the numbers and the averages of each allograph. So we selected 3 corpora from digitized news articles. The 3 large corpora use modern standard Arabic, a pan-Arab format drawn entirely from news text. MSA is the standardized form used in contemporary formal writing and media across the Arab world. This choice was intentional. News texts follow standardized orthographic conventions, are representative of formal written Arabic in public circulation, and are typically free from vocalization marks, unless you need them you can put some vocalization marks, but we're not counting them here. In some news, if there is man'an lil-iltibas, it's called, so to avoid confusion. Sometimes vocalization marks do enter into news Arabic articles. The software is planned to eventually, this software which we just saw, is planned to eventually support the counting of specific allograph sequences, like how many, what is the sequence of be coming after each other, or be te coming after each other. And this was a request from type designer colleague Khajak Apelian. And for example, we can build the software to support such questions, contextual alternates later on, and vocalization marks, which we are now working on. And we are thinking of the possibility to offer it as an open access platform once all of this is fully developed and finished. This is the part that gets a bit statistical, so bear with me. With the help of my partner, Danielle Nammour, who is an engineer and a mathematician, we conducted the count on 2 levels. I needed help, I'm a designer, so when it comes to statistics and numbers, I need all the help I could get. First, we used a collection of 3 large corpora, amounting to approximately 5 million allographs, to establish the average percentage of each allograph and its standard deviation. Then we ran a second study. So we put the 5 million into the software, and then we got all the results. But that was not enough. We ran a second study using 40 short texts selected at random from one of the news corpora, Al Khalij. These shorter samples that have an average allograph count of 4,000 characters simulate more typical text environments, and were used to verify whether the large corpus average of each allograph could be considered for smaller scale contexts. Why do we count these shorter samples? One of the key challenges is quantifying allograph frequency is the variation in text length. For example, some articles are short, others are long. Simply counting allograph occurrences would produce inconsistent results. For example, if the large corpora yielded, let's say, an average frequency of 2% for the final lam, can this average be considered reliable for a shorter text? To address this, we normalized all counts into percentages, allowing for comparison across texts of different lengths. We then calculated the average frequency of each allograph, and just as importantly, its standard deviation, which indicates how consistent or variable an allograph's appearance is across corpora. Simply, standard deviation measures how much the frequency of a particular shape varies from one text to another. A low standard deviation means the shape appears at a relatively stable rate across different samples, while a high one suggests greater variability, and this we should take with a grain of rice, as they say. So the results of the frequencies are going to be displayed as such in the upcoming book that will be published by the HMCT later this year, and will reveal the results of the whole study in detail. So let's talk about here the pages. So on the right here with the red 2.7, the letter wow occurs 2.7% times. But because its standard deviation is between 2 and 3, we thought that this is a bit dangerous to take it for granted that wows are always almost with a frequency average of 2.7. Oranges are acceptable, like the medial scene and the Alif Hamza, and the blues are good to go. So on the left here in the Ha, 0.07 or 0.08%, and the standard variability is very low, deviation is very low. So it goes without saying that this is a good number to take as a number. Yeah. Yes, and now that we have established the average frequency of each allograph, what does this actually tell us? On its own, the percentage may appear abstract. It's just numbers, a number. But when analyzed in groups that share similar characteristics or dissimilar characteristics, these numbers begin to reveal an underlying pattern that could be translated into a visual texture, rhythm, or understanding of the Arabic script and how it looks. There are many ways to read these frequencies, and one of the ways is to do an anatomical grouping. So let's go back to Ibn Muqla's law of similarity, which I have previously mentioned here. Here is a selection of 4 out of 10 anatomical groupings based on a shared stroke. From the left to the right, you have the belly, the stem, cup, and extended plate, highlighting shared elements across allographs in the lower box below the letter. So here, when you group the numbers, you have 1% of the allographs have a belly, and it covers 10 shapes, 10 letters. In the Alif, or the stem, the vertical stem, you have 31%. That's 1/3 of Arabic script contains vertical stems, and it is shared across 32 allographs. In the cup, you have 7.7, or if you round it, 8% have cups, they appear, and they are shared across 20 allographs, and 2% for the extended and shared across 10 allographs. We can also do anatomical subgroups. So let's say we took the first nabira, we call it nabira, that is shared by 40 allographs. We can subdivide it into nabiras and teeth, by the way. So they almost share the same shape, very similar shapes. So we can have medial and initial nabiras or teeth. So we can also go into details much more since we have the numbers. Also for open counters, we can go to left-facing open counters, right-facing open counters. So Ain family heads or Ha, Kha, Jim family heads. We can also do dots. How about the dots? What is the visual impact of dots on the Arabic script, and what is the pattern that it leaves? So you can see here that 23% of the dots are above the baseline and 13% of the dots are below. The total dotted percentage is 36%. And we can go to 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots above or below the baseline. This is a visualization, and the symmetry is very obvious, basically. There's the dots are on the upper texture. It creates an upper texture higher and much lower at the bottom. But is parameterizing or counting or finding patterns enough also to get a sense of what are we looking for? We can also count the letters in a different way. So we can group according to vertical heights, let's say. While we have shown the results according to anatomical similarity, this part focuses on vertical space the letters occupy. Here, the allographs are grouped by how high or how low they extend relative to the baseline. This grouping method could provide practical data for type designers, font developers, and typographers working with the Arabic script in digital and print environments, for example. Understanding how often high ascending or deep descending forms appear can influence how designers define vertical metrics in a user interface font, specifically where screen space is very limited. This is the vertical metrics diagram showing the proportional height system used to group the Arabic letter forms. The extreme upper and lower limits, A2 and D2, mark the highest and lowest points allographs reach, excluding vocalization marks, of course. Intermediate height zones, A1 and D1, represent a middle range of allographs above that go partially rise and descend from the baseline. So let's group these and see what kind of visual impact do we have. The A1 group alone, okay, which is the middle extent to the medium vertical zone above the baseline, comprises forms that occupy a medium height zone above the baseline, making up 37.4% of all allographs, indicating that more than a third of the script sits comfortably within this middle upper range, more than a third. In the A2 group, which reaches the full vertical height above the baseline, accounts for 30%, almost 29.92%, showing that high ascending forms are also quite common. These are almost 2/3 were here. The third is here in the A1D1, which are allographs that extend to medium vertical height in the A1 zone and go down to below the baseline to D1, to that zone, to the median zone also. And that's another third. So where are the rest? So we have here 4%, the A1D2. It's allographs that go from the medial to the farthest point below, and A2D1, which is 2% only. And these are allographs that go from A2, the upper limit, to slightly below the medial, in the medial zone of D1. That's 2%. But how, so this is how Arabic allographs are distributed vertically. Combined, these two groups represent 67 above the A1, D1, basically you have 67.3% are above, rise above the baseline, and 32.7% go below the baseline, either through dots, hamzas, cups, tails, bodies, or stems. This uneven distribution highlights a crucial insight for Arabic type design and its visual texture as a whole. The bulk of allographs, again, cluster above the baseline, making the script visually top-heavy, as we have seen in the dots too. Could it have any implications on line spacing, let's say? So could these statistics have anything to do with line spacing? When compared to Latin, the Arabic vertical heights increase the risk of interlinear collision when typeset using 20% defaults that are set for Latin, which means that when one applies the 20% default leading, it fails to take into account the structural demands of Arabic type. I would like to note here that I'm using Mizan as a visual tool. Mizan Arabic is designed by Christian Serkis from Typotech, and I feel that it is a quintessential Naskh typeface. Of course, these numbers, or these, not the frequencies, these heights could differ differ with typeface that you are using also, but the numbers won't change. The two groups containing the highest ascending allographs, A2 and A2D1, if you group them together, this is what will make the difference in the collision. When Arabic is typeset in a paragraph using the default 20% leading again, the highest ascending allographs are likely to clash with the lowest descending allographs from the line above it, especially those in the D2 zone, which includes A1, D2 forms accounting for 4%. So how do we see the probability of this? This vertical overlap or collision can result in collisions of hamzas, alifs with ha and kha between lines, disrupting the legibility and rhythm of the text. To estimate the probability, it's an estimate, of such a clash, we calculated the intersection of these two sets by multiplying their frequencies. This means, and the result is, here it's 1.3 almost. This means that on average, every 100 allographs or letters, excluding word spaces, we did not count word spaces, may collide, every 100, 1.3 letters or allographs will collide vertically at 20% leading. In longer running texts, let's say 1,000 allographs, okay, or character count, approximately 13 collisions are statistically expected at 20% leading. If partially or fully vocalized, this probability runs much, much higher. You can see obviously that it's running much higher. Now, to take it back to the 20% default leading, current desktop publishing software often assumes that the default leading is universally applicable, a cookie cutter setting sort of grounded in Latin typographic norms. However, Arabic script presents a different set of structural and spatial challenges. Its deeper descenders, additional diacritics, not to mention the vocalization marks, occasional, and complex vertical behavior make it less compatible with the same baseline to baseline spacing concept. Rather than applying a one-size-fits-all model, it may be worth exploring script-sensitive defaults that better reflect the typographic needs of Arabic. So for example, let's dream and say that Adobe, once you open a text box in Arabic on Adobe software, you get a percentage of 27 or 28% default by automatically. So initial tests suggest that the leading of 27.5 to 30% offers more reliable results for Arabic that are visually equal to what's happening in the 20% of the Latin. This helps avoid collision and preserve the visual clarity too. Such a change would mark a shift towards more inclusive and context-aware typesetting practices. As you can see here on the right, there are, oh, it's gone. Okay, the one before it maybe. Okay, and here it's gone, the red marks on the right, which we found manually, not even statistically. To end with, these frequencies hold a range of possibilities and can hopefully extend beyond the typographic interpretations presented here in this study. They could offer potential insights if grouped completely differently for other fields, maybe natural language processing fields, optical character recognition, teaching methodologies, artificial intelligence, and various others. Thank you.
Thank you, Yara.
Yeah, that was so interesting to hear again about.
Your project is so robust. There's so many layers to it and all the different groupings. And I know you held yourself back from some of the groupings to explore still.
Yes, too many options. Once you have the frequency, there's too many options to group things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For our audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll read them out to Yara. We have a few questions, right?
We do have
we can get started. Do you want to start?
Shall I stop sharing?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Whatever you prefer. We're wondering about the anatomical terms of the Arabic script, because you had mentioned when you were here that people did not agree yet on, there were different ways of calling the same parts. And you mentioned that you had a trip coming up to maybe figure that out. So are the terms that you're using now agreed upon, or?
Not yet. No, not yet. I'm involved in a project with AUC, Bahia Shahab's team, and with Khat and others, and Nadine Shaheen and Kamal Mansour and others to work on the nomenclature, okay, of Arabic type terms. So, for example, what you saw in one of the slides, the extended plate is just invention. Just so I have a name for that part that shows this part of the letter form. So I have this stroke, but it's occurring in many other forms, but what is it called? So an extended plate and proper plate. So what you saw is 4 out of 10 groupings. So if you want to see the rest, you have to see the book that comes out. So yes, it was at the conference in Kitabat called in AUC, and we're still working on it. It's a work in progress. It's a very big project. It might take time, and it will involve a much bigger set of professionals who've worked in the field, historians, translators also, because we need those words in Arabic and in English. So yeah, very robust, to say the least. I'll use your word, project.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I have a question about the typography, the typeface that you use for your research. What was the criteria for the typeface that you chose? Because I imagine that this could also render different results.
Yes, they do. They do. I mean, but when it comes to frequency, it doesn't change. So it doesn't matter really. But in the heights, it does. In the grouping, the anatomical groupings, it won't change a lot. If it's a naskh or based on a naskh calligraphic style. But if it's more towards Kufi or rigid, let's call it rigid, then it's another set of criteria, and the heights will completely differ. Like there are fonts that have very uniform medial heights. And you can see in Mizan, it's changing, and it's following to a certain extent the calligraphic norms of Naskh to a certain extent. So on that reason, I chose Mizan. Because it's a quintessentially Naskh typeface. Of course, I could choose much more classical Naskh typefaces also, which Pascal Zogby just came out with one, which is beautiful work. So it wasn't there out by the time I was doing this work. I would like to try it actually and see what happens. But the numbers won't change.
Any questions from the audience? We'll keep looking in case anybody wants to add any. Do you have any more?
We didn't have more. Let me think about it for a second.
I have another. So part of our conversation has also been, because after your residency, the residency is only 4 weeks, and this research had already begun in some respect, and I know that there's more with it that you want to do. And part of the there's a time constraint. Like, what can you do in those 4 weeks? And HMCT is proud to support a section of a project, and that's the section also that will be included in the book that Jimena and I are designing together with Yara, that will be published by the end of the year. Once the book is set and sort of we've contained this stage of your research, what comes next?
I want to count vocalization marks. It's very important for educational books, because the early educational books, when you're starting to learn Arabic, the vocalization marks are used heavily because they are short vowels for reading. So if an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old is trying to read the text, and I suffered this with my children, that the books are so badly designed that a fatha that's supposed to come on top of a letter is almost read like a kasra that is supposed to come on the bottom of the letter that is on top of that line. So they're always like, is that a fatha or a kasra of that letter, you know? So so vocalization marks are quite a big step, next step to understand. And also I want to, as I said, do the contextual alternates and the sequence of allographs, because there's a script grammar, as Thomas Milo puts it. And the script grammar change, even if 3 letters come up after each other in a sequence, they change shape because they're too similar. So that rule, because it's too similar, they change. So some typographers or type designers want to know, to what extent, what is the frequency of this occurrence? Is it worth designing different letters alternates for, or is it not? So things like this, I think you can take it much further as a typographer, but I'm sure like I hope somebody else would use it for things that I've never heard, thought about.
Okay. We do have a question from the audience. Abdul Musin Alatar. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that well.
Abdul Mohsen Al-Attar.
There you go.
Yes.
In your research on Arabic letterform frequencies, how do you account for the impact of diacritics and ligatures on the frequency of allographs? Do these elements affect how forms are counted or categorized in your system?
Yes, this is a good question. We did not, I did not count ligatures at all or sequences of letters. This is what I was saying, because mostly MSA or modern standard Arabic does not use them. It uses them very minimally, basically. So let's say it uses the lam meme ligature. Abdul Mohsen. So the lam meme is not counted for. It's counted as 2 letters, because we couldn't count that ligature. It was too quick. We had 4 weeks to do all this work. So this is what the next step is, to account for these combinations of letter forms, the contextual alternates and these things. Yeah.
I have another question that is maybe about your overall practice. This research was so much about leading, and I know that part of what you do in your practice is designing bilingual books. So how do you, when you design bilingual books, how do you account for the difference in volume, let's say, of typesetting and the space that one script needs over
I mean, practice, and I've said that at the beginning, visual equity, and just a lot of practice, basically. But also, you choosing the right typeface is very important. So if you choose Mizan, let's say, and you're doing a bilingual book with Mizan Arabic and English, Mizan is the peculiar thing about Mizan is that it was designed in Arabic first, and then the Latin followed it, changing its proportions to follow the Arabic. Still, if you put them together, still, I mean, as you've seen, the spacing between the lines is much bigger for the Latin than the Arabic visually, I'm saying. So it's still that there is a collision that is happening every 100 allographs. There's a collision that is still happening. So even with that, things like this will have to be compensated. So you'll have to open up the leading of the Arabic a little bit to visually make it equal if you're looking to be congruent, let's say, if you're looking to be congruent. And sometimes it's not, it doesn't have to be at all. I mean, Arabic is Arabic and Latin is Latin. And we've seen in the first slides how you think that Latin is very organized and structured and boxed up and done, and Latin is and Arabic is too organic and flowy. But actually, when you dissect it, parameterize it, group it, you will find a lot of sense, visual sense to it, and you start looking at it in a completely different eye. And so when designing bilingual books, I just don't want to do the leading equally. I don't think it's a good practice anyway, unless you really have to, but it doesn't have to.
Right. I have a small follow-up question to this conversation about the leading. A lot of what we were talking about when you were here was this 20% standard. Has the numbers that you come across, or has the research given you any insight or what a standard Arabic percentage could be?
Yes, 27. And the moment these collisions stop happening is at 27%. That is the what do you call it? The breaking line, where the limit where it starts not happening, the collisions, 27% and above, something like this.
Right. Great. We have another question from the audience. Kamal.
Yes, I saw Kamal. I just answered that, Gamal. I don't have the frequency of multi-tooth nebula sequences yet. And that is what Khajak Apelian was asking me for. Not yet. This is the next step. Let's hope we continue with this project. Take it to the next step.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions or any comments, Yara, this was incredible. Thank you so much for
And thank you again.
being
Thank
here
you
with
again.
us those 4 weeks. We had a great time with you.
Yeah.
We learned so much
Yeah.
from you. This is exactly the type of project that the Type Center, the HMCT, wants to be supporting. Thank you for taking the time to pull it all together. I know that was a very big task, and we also gave you a tight deadline with this talk to pull it all together and to make sense of it so that people can understand. And
Thank you.
thank you to
Again.
everybody for taking the time to be here with us today. And the video, the recording of this video will be available on YouTube in the next few weeks once we edit and put it together. And keep an eye out for the book
And
coming
reach out. Yeah, and reach out to me with any questions and any ideas on how to group these frequencies. We're open.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Yara.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.